I'm John Law, this is Chasing Cars, and welcome back to our weekly news wrap-up for the week of the 1st of November. Now this week was a bit of a mixed bag. It wasn't the busiest week in news, but there was some pretty good EV content which we're going to cover, starting by talking about the Volkswagen ID5, the brand's first electric coupe crossover, if you want to call it something like that. You can let me know in the comment section below what you'd refer to it as. But this is an electric crossover based on the MEB platform, and that means a couple of good things. It's going to have about 520 kilometers of range in its longest travel form. It's going to have a 77 kilowatt hour battery, and it's going to be headlined by a performance-oriented GTX variant, which is kind of where Volkswagen's going with the GTI as we move into an all-electric future by 2030. Following that, we've got Toyota, who are finally entering the EV game with the BZ4X. Now, this stuff isn't confirmed entirely yet, but we do have an indication of what it's going to offer, and that is pretty much a direct competitor to that ID5 that I just told you about. So it's going to have a 71.4 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery, allowing it to achieve about a 500 kilometer range, and it's going to debut the all-new eTNGA architecture. So it's going to be a competitor for not just that Volkswagen, but also the Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6, and Tesla Model Y. Moving away from electric vehicles, we can talk about the Audi A8, which dropped a facelifted version this week. And while you may think it's an all-new vehicle because it's 18 millimeters longer, actually that's all in the brand new bumpers. They're set off by a new set of LED lights, and it looks pretty sharp. Now, the interesting thing about this Audi is that almost all of its sales are taken up by the Chinese market, which buys 60% of globally made Audi A8s. And for that, they've been rewarded with their own special version, an extra long wheelbase, sort of Maybach competitor called the Horch, which looks, interesting. And then again, on a whole new end of the spectrum, the SEMA show was held this week in Las Vegas, and there were some pretty rad concepts coming from some OEM manufacturers, starting with the Jeep Overland, which kind of looks a little bit like a first generation Land Rover Discovery with its extra canopy, but it's really cool take on the Jeep Wrangler, moving from a 5-seat configuration to a 7-seat configuration. Now, we'd like to think there was a V8 up front, but Jeep kind of didn't share details about that, so we kind of hope it makes production. It'll fit somewhere between the Wrangler and the Gladiator for overall length, and just look rad doing it. Another American OEM, unsurprisingly, turned up at SEMA. This time it was Ford, who brought their Bronco Desert Racer, a V8-powered off-roader that previews what could be a Bronco Raptor that could come in the future, and that's pretty rad. But along with their V8, Ford also debuted something pretty cool in the electric sphere. It's an electric crate motor that sort of works like a 5.7 litre GM LS engine, except it's electric and you can fit it in pretty much whatever car you want. And Ford's shown it off in an F100 Ute in the Eluminator concept, which, what a great way to roll around in a beautiful looking vehicle without polluting the environment. I think it's a great idea. I want to see more of that. Now, moving into news closer to home, sales this month came out for October 2021, and there were some interesting trends we saw happening. Mainly that the global semiconductor shortage is continuing to affect production across the board pretty much. So Toyota had sales down with the RAV4, and we already saw dealers trying to buy back RAV4 models last month to try and buoy their stock levels, and it looks like it's going to stay that way for the next month. But apart from that, the sales were pretty well. We had a bit of a shuffle around, and at the top of the tree was the usual two competitors. The Ford Ranger came number one, followed by the Toyota Hilux. Another little news from Australia, Peugeot are going to drop 2 plug-in hybrid models early next year in the 508 sedan and 3008 SUV and 3008 SUV, both of which have about 60 kilometers of all-electric range, but cost $20,000 more than their petrol counterparts. So you can let me know in the comment section down below whether you think it's going to be worth going for the electric examples of these vehicles when their petrol counterparts are so much more affordable. And the final two items on the agenda, starting with a little bit of fun, it's the GR86 pricing. Now, we had a look at the pricing that came out in the US, where the car started just a little bit more than the outgoing model of 86, and through extrapolating the data back here to Australia, we reckon that the GR86 could start from as little as $35,000 when it launches here in Australia, and that's something pretty exciting. It's not often you get to see a whole new car coming that doesn't increase price much, especially in the sports car segment. And finally, the Ford Ranger Ute, Australia's best-selling car last month, is going to get an all-new generation that's launching on the 24th of November. So we're going to have all the details for that in a video form, but we're also going to have plenty of details over on the website, as we always do. So if you want to know any more about the stories I've mentioned in today's video, make sure you hop over there to read the full story. And also, we'd love it if you could leave a comment telling us whether you like this kind of content, or whether you'd like to see something slightly different, or that you're just having a good time in the car world. And as always, while you're down there, we'd love it if you could hit subscribe, and thanks for watching Chasing Cars.